Hello and welcome to our career interview with Mr. Marcus Knodler. Joining me today for this interview is student Adler Carl. We'll get started. Mr. Knodler, if you could tell us about your profession and what has been your path to get where you currently are today.
Yeah, sure. So first off, I'm a systems/software engineer for Raytheon Technologies based in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. And then I'm also a military intelligence officer part-time in the Massachusetts Army National Guard. So I have two careers. The one is full-time is Raytheon, and then part-time in the Army. And to get there, obviously I did well in high school, but not the best. And then I applied to an Army ROTC scholarship in high school, junior year of high school, and was awarded that scholarship, and then took that scholarship to Worcester Polytechnic Institute, where I got degrees in aerospace engineering and did Army ROTC for all 4 years of college. And then while at school at Worcester Polytech, I picked up an internship at Raytheon Technologies and ran with that each summer throughout college. And then when I graduated college, I became the officer in the Army part-time and then started at Raytheon full-time.
Adler, you want to ask your question?
Oh, yeah. What do you love most about your job?
Yeah, so right now it kind of goes into the typical day at work. So I'm a field engineer for Raytheon, so I don't work in an office, which is kind of what I wanted right now. That's kind of what I set it up for. So as a systems software engineer, I work on a Navy ship each day, not to be confused with the Army stuff I do. This is for Raytheon. So I work on the Navy ship. Raytheon codes and delivers the software to the ship, and I go on board the ship each day to try and make the software work. So just like your iPhone gets software updates periodically, we do software updates to the system on the ship. And so I go on and try to make that software update work, try and troubleshoot it, analyze data, make code changes to the software update. And then me being a field engineer, I kind of report those findings and report that troubleshooting back home each day, each week to the Raytheon team back in Massachusetts. And then all the while, I go out to sea for a couple weeks at a time with the ship and stay on the ship with the crew and for live test events such as like tracking exercises where we track different planes and things of that nature. So I'm kind of in a way like an astronaut stranded out on the ship sometimes, fixing a lot of problems that come up, which is kind of cool. It keeps things interesting and very chaotic, and just gives me a lot to do on the ship, which is pretty rewarding because it makes you go out of your comfort zone and learn more than you thought you could.
What are some skills you need for this job, like communications, problem solving, and teamwork, or do you need more of training skills, like being things that you can be taught?
Yeah, exactly. So I think the soft skills are just as important, if not more important, than just your strict education and say mathematical skills for what I do. Teamwork being the first one that comes to mind. It's incredibly important out on these Navy ships and what I do for all the engineering. A lot of the times you're part of a much larger group with other systems, and everyone on board, they have technical backgrounds, but everyone has their own systems, and the systems have to work together, which means the people need to work together as well. And this becomes especially important when things are not going well for whatever event you're working on or day. If there seems to be problems, the people have to work together, and there has to be strong teamwork and communication in order to get through whatever you're trying to work through that day. Problem solving is, of course, important, especially with what I work with, it being so complicated. And granted, I know very little about the entire system in the grand scheme of things. When something's been around 20 years, and I've been around 2 years. It's quite a complicated system, so I try to take a really slow, methodical approach to problem solving and troubleshooting. That way we don't get confused right off the bat. And that is a soft skill of just taking your time and being organized and having a methodical approach. And of course, you mentioned communication while troubleshooting or doing anything for that matter for Raytheon or the Army is important. My team back home for Raytheon in Massachusetts doesn't know what I'm doing or what I'm struggling with unless I tell them in detail. So the lines of communication when we're on the ship, or especially now with Army doing things virtual, or troubleshooting for Raytheon out here in California on the Navy ships while my team is back home, communication is literally everything for the success or what we're working through from a troubleshooting standpoint.
So you touched on this a little bit, but what would you say are some challenges that you face in your profession?
Yeah, so the main challenges this last year since I've been at site in San Diego working on the Navy ships, one would definitely be the demanding work schedule and lifestyle at times, but that's what I signed up for in this current role. Raytheon itself, the company, has a great work-life balance, but when you're out at site with all the test events and all the deadlines that have to be met, the work schedule and lifestyle can be demanding. But that kind of goes back to what we'll probably talk about in terms of time management and organization and communication. Just making sure that you're on top of all that so that you have time, so that your professional life is squared away. That way you can keep your personal life on track as well with the things you care about and the people you care about. And then the only other thing is being a field engineer out here by myself, so to speak. You need to keep communication up back home with upper management at the department level, because you don't have as much exposure at your home office that you normally would if you were working just in the office in Massachusetts. So, you just need to have your work be known and make sure that you're sending out reports of what you're doing and what's going on at site. That way, your career is on track with what it should be, and people understand your goals and what you want to accomplish next at the company.
Is there any advice you have for a student that would be interested in going into this profession, such as if freelance work, if there is any in that field, is that as profitable as doing what you're doing, like working for a company?
Yeah, so I'd say in general, the advice would be that things like work ethic, determination, and willingness to learn are way more important than what I like to call like getting a 90 versus a 98 on a test or grades in general. Those things will outwork or outlast purely just getting a little bit better grade or a little bit scores. And I always go back to the fact that I had just very average SATs or ACT scores. But I like to think that work ethic and determination, and especially willingness to learn and do something that you are not particularly trained on or that you haven't learned, having those abilities to adapt and go with them are much more important. And then this idea of organization and time management and how it will create freedom for you. It kind of sounds like organization and time management would be the opposite, that you have to be structured and you have to do all these things. But when you're organized and squared away professionally, like I said before, it frees you up and allows you to have time personally for the things and people you care about. So organization, time management, work ethic, determination, willingness to learn, all those things would be top of the list for me in terms of getting into this profession. Freelance, getting into the profession, at Raytheon, I know they have a lot of workshops and things that they do to reach out at the college level. So as these students transition from high school and then into college, they should just start looking at companies such as mine and those opportunities for these workshops will definitely be there. And the one thing I wish is that I started sooner. I started at Raytheon junior year of college, but really I could have been getting involved with them one way or another at the freshman level, and they're excited about that too.
Are there any classes you took in middle school or high school that connect to your job now?
Yeah, so two that stand out are this science class. I think it was Earth Science that we came in early before the actual school day started, and it was really just because that kind of set the tone for me in terms of you can get ahead or do something meaningful in your career, whether it's academia or professionally, if you come in early and put the extra work in to learn something that maybe others aren't doing. So that kind of set the tone that you need to work extra in order to get ahead or get where you want to be. And then the other one is for me going to obviously be calculus in high school. That was only because I couldn't predict how much math I was in my future in college. It seemed like every class came down to math. So calculus was important, and I'm glad and lucky that I took that as seriously as I did. And then it's not really classes, but sports and other activities in high school in particular were great for things that we've been talking about, like leadership, teamwork, communications skills, especially in a team environment. Those are important to mix in with academia in order to get a complete set of skills that will take you wherever you need to be.
So we're coming to the end of our time for our interview. Marcus, do you have anything else you'd like to share that we didn't get to for the students that will be watching this?
Yeah, I would just say if there's anything at all you're interested in for academia or work afterwards, to just inquiry about it early and often. When I was in high school pursuing the Army stuff, and then when I was in college pursuing an extra degree, these things were possible. And at the time, maybe I didn't think they were possible, but there are people out there that want to answer your questions. They have answers, and they won't know about your questions unless you ask early and often. So guidance counselors and teachers in high school, and then your professors in college or at career fair, people at career fairs, people have the answers for what you're interested in. And if they don't, they can point you to somebody that does. So it's just really important that you make it known what you're interested in and where you want to go for school or work, and people will help. Just keep asking questions.
Well, Marcus, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I think you have a lot of great advice for students. So thank you for taking the time to meet with us today.
Thank you, Mr.
Guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.